Hi, this is Lindsay with Contents of Characters. And I know you haven't heard from me in a while, so I wanted to just take the time to let you know that I am taking a break. It looks like I'm taking a break. There may be a fear that I'm quitting, but I am taking a break because I feel like maybe it might have been noticeable, but I was definitely going down a spiral of not being able to get rid of that cough, which came along with a lot of other just yucky, normal cold stuff that lasted for a long time and kind of sort of triggered a depression, along with other things going on and really being so deeply into this season. It was really dark and heavy, and so I've been kind of trying to crawl out of it, and I think I'm doing a good job. I'm not attempting to try to keep up with the show at that pace anymore because I simply would have to watch the episodes too many times and not give myself what I need right now. So, Cynthia and I, over at Bunch at Lunch, have still been working on our Greg episode, and it's going to come out very nicely. I have not put this much time into anything I've done, and we're really putting it to the test of bringing the best of what both of us bring, and so I'm very, very excited about that. Okay, so what am I going to do with this Contents of Characters channel? I'm going to take my time over the spring and summer and put them out when it works for me, because my brother's baseball season will start up really soon, and if I feel like I don't have time now, I know I'm not going to have an ounce of time or energy then. So I'm sorry that there's going to be a delay on that, but I'm also going to continue to give you some content in the meantime that's way more manageable, and so they're going to be called Content Kernels. And they're going to be very short. You know, I might have an update in there, but for the most part, they are going to be kernels, and they're just going to be, you know, hey, this is what I was thinking about with episode, some of the stuff that I haven't really talked about yet. So just keep that in mind and hang in with me, and I promise you good content is coming to you, and I appreciate you for listening. I appreciate you for being a fan of this show, because I think everyone that's a fan of this show has got something really special about them. I feel like we're like all some sort of humanitarians in some way. So anyway, here's your love kernel. Content kernel. Content kernel numero uno comes from episode 309, Nathaniel Gets the Message, and we're going to talk about Fit Hot Guys Have Problems Too, mainly because I want to talk about Josh and the Tarts with Heart. Some of the things that they kind of did in this episode, in this song, oh my god. We will not be talking about things such as how unbelievably hot two of the performers were, and the other one was fine. We're not going to do that because I think it might be divisive. So, also, not as cool as some of the other things. We want to get down to these Fit Hot guys' problems. No, we don't. We just don't want to focus on their bodies because, you know, I don't want to be that person. I mean, I will in my dreams, but I don't want to do it right now. Okay. So, spoiler alert. I am up to season 3, episode 11. There may be spoilers. I doubt it. Just giving you a heads up. This will be short, and I'm going to try to do my best to make it interesting. You've probably thought of these things because you're smart, but I enjoy you listening to me, and any feedback you want to give me is greatly appreciated. So, here we go.
Josh? No. Hold on, are you actually here? Like, in reality? Yeah. This is my new job. I'm a go-go dancer at this club.
That's what you meant by volunteer fireman. Okay, got it.
You want to join our imaginary song and dance?
Sure.
We're going to talk about walls. Why would we talk about fucking walls? Okay, so this show has levels of delusion and awareness that I feel like can be kind of separated out season by season. Okay, so those kind of create some walls in my head. And then we also have songs, which are fantasy numbers inside your mind, sometimes delusional, sometimes insightful, little bits. And then we also have, just the season or the episodes and the literal wall of the TV screen. So what I think is interesting is I feel like there's been more breaking the fourth wall in general in songs. And whenever they do that, I think part of the reason that they do it is because as Rebecca gets healthier and healthier and her need for delusion dissipates, I think that the songs are going to have more real world crossover type. And I don't just mean real world as fourth wall, but real world within the series, within the West Covina. Oh my God. Kind of cracks where it exists. And so Fit Hot Guys does this. There's a lot more to talk about with this song. But whenever they invite Josh into their imaginary song, but Josh is in his real life, it's a little bit of a disconnect. And I feel like I heard some people being a little upset about it, but I like it. I think it's fine. And I think it takes the level of creativity to a different point where, you have two guys who are grieving relationships and are afraid to admit it and are searching out goodness gracious knows what to fill that void, and nothing's working. Partly because, you just have to go through the pain. It's part of it. You don't get to pretend like you don't hurt because it comes up one way or another. Which is an interesting point for where Nathaniel is whenever the time jump happens. Because he's sure not dealing with anything. Whereas White Josh did, so I'll be excited to see what happens there. But we look at Josh in this moment, and he isn't living out a fantasy. He's trying his best to figure out how to get by when, quite frankly, he's never had to do it on his own. He's always had some sort of support system in place, and he's not ambitious. And he knows that. So he's kind of looking, what does ambition look like for him? And he knows that he needs money, and I don't know if maybe he needs to get away. I don't know exactly why he turned to stripping, but he did. And what I think is super interesting, another thing I think is super interesting is while White Josh and Nathaniel are upset about their relationships, Josh is upset about his life and his future, which can be said for the other two as well. But he's not grieving a person or a relationship so much as he's making hard choices and trying not to mess up his survival jobs, like his bartending job, which I don't have a clue how you can get fired for a fucking zit. That's ridiculous. But he's kind of broken in a way, and we get to see him exposed and raw, and we get to see him kind of do this during an imaginary dance. So, what I imagine happens is they're sitting at the bar and they're thinking about how obviously little party girl comes up to him and is like, you don't have real problems. And they're like, yes, we do. And so they kind of get enough pushback that makes them realize, okay, we really have to address this. And they're finally able to feel their emotions. But during this sort of like fantasy of kind of a back and forth of we're good enough and we're also, nobody looks at us deeply, and we try not to take ourselves too deeply because, it's painful. And so we put on a very pretty physical physique to deal with that. And so Josh comes in their imaginary world where, yeah, Josh is like, he makes some jokes in this episode about, or some statements in this episode about how it's hard to be, this fit, but also like part of what Josh is saying is like, it's hard because I have to put myself out there in a way that I don't really want to, but it's also giving me something. Because like I said before, I really think Josh is a performer. So this episode, this number is like, it kind of flips this idea of a woman working as a stripper and trying to make it, and how, we don't really have sympathy for the way the women look either, but automatically they're kind of exposed as not quite worthy. And so I think Josh has this sort of fear that his friends will judge him, and like he says, he's up on a pedestal and all of this sort of stuff, and judgmental Josh over there is just kind of and so obviously Josh has got a disconnect between where he is and what the rest of the world thinks of him. But I think too, Josh is just like, he's been able to be kind of square and fit into some nice sort of like healthy pegs maybe, and he's not really been, like I said, ambitious, but he's kind of fit in, and he's very likable. And now he's doing this thing that kind of exposes him, even though that's not why he's doing it. And so I think there's a bit of shame that comes along with it. But also there's like kind of an immediate acceptance of like, okay, this is what you're doing. We're your friend, or I'm your friend. Josh? What, Josh? I'm your friend. And so, do your thing. And I think it's such a huge, huge contrast from Josh's opening number this season, with his head in the clouds and getting to do this super cool dance number, which we know meant a lot to Vinny. And now that sort of, it's kind of got this real world application to it. And so he is a real world sort of insertion into the whole number, which is really kind of two things where, the lovers are having an epiphany that they have to deal with their shit, and that they can't just be beautiful and obsessed with something else and solve their problems. And then Josh comes in his real world, taking his head out of his own delusions, and has to dance to make it. And if there's ever a character on this show that has a heart of gold, there's George. There's always George. But Josh, really, he doesn't want to hurt anyone ever. I know he does a lot of it, but he never wants to, and it's not like a disregard for people. It's just a gross misunderstanding of his impact on people and the impact of his choices. And so, I feel like his head's out of the clouds and he's into this real world that isn't what he wanted. And I don't mean that there's anything wrong with stripping, because there's really not. But for everything that I do know about Josh and that I have learned about Josh, he needs something wholesome in his life. And this is not wholesome, and it's not congruent with what we've learned about him. Now, is it going to go in a different direction? I don't know. But in this moment, he's kind of being confronted with reality and, left to ugly cry. And he does get the content Kernel Award for the Best Ugly Cry. And I think David Hull, who plays White Josh, gave Vinny, who plays just Josh, a heck of a run for his money. And so this has been Content Kernels with Lindsay. You can find me at Contents of Characters, plural, not possessive. I'm on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, and hopefully any other platforms. It may be a little hard to find because I didn't think about my name as well as I should have. So, my bad. But if you go to Contents of Characters, you can find me out at Podbean pretty easy. And you should have any trouble, if you should have any trouble, contact me at Twitter at girlykick. And then my little pretty thing says Contents of Characters, and I've got my little logo thing, and it's all swell and dandy. So I may get another one of these out this week. I don't have a schedule for you, and I do apologize, and I do appreciate you taking the 10 or 15 minutes to listen to this, and I hope to keep putting more of these little kernels out and eventually do a bigger breakdown of the end of the season. I am super excited about the Same Size Spoon launch that will be happening in about a month or so, and the Greg episode we have been talking about is very close to being completed, and I'm very happy to say that what I'm doing there is a lot of putting in my best efforts, and I think it's going to be quality product. So, sayonara. I hope that means goodbye.
Let us ugly cry.